Okay, welcome everyone to the Pitt Alumni Association's collaboration with the School of Education today on working from home, raising kids, and living in the new normal. We are excited to have you here today, and I see that our participant number is steadily increasing, so I'm just going to wait one more minute before we get started, and yeah. Okay, here we go. So we are so excited to have you here joining the Pitt Alumni Association and the School of Education today on our topic, working from home, raising kids, and living in the new normal. I'm so excited to have Molly Matsik and Denise Esposto here, and I'm going to introduce them and then turn this over to them. So, Denise Esposto received her bachelor's and master's degrees from the University of Pittsburgh School of Health-Related Professions with majors in child development and child care. She is a certified child life specialist and currently a candidate in the EDD program in the School of Education at the University of Pittsburgh. So she will be 3 times an alumni. So exciting. Ms. Esposto has over 30 years of professional experience working with and for children and families in a variety of settings. She was the manager of the Child Life Department for 12 years and was a CCLS for 18 years at the Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh of UPMC. She has been an adjunct assistant professor at the University of Pittsburgh since 2000 and teaches in the Applied Developmental Psychology program in the School of Education. She has developed many educational programs in services and materials and presentations for hospitals, schools, community groups, organizations, and national presentations. She joined the HealthyCHILD program in the Office of Child Development in September 2014. She is a developmental healthcare consultant and provides developmental, behavioral, and mental health care consultation services, supports, and resources for children, family, and early care providers using evidence-based practices and procedures. She is a volunteer at our clubhouse and with Surgicorps International and has gone on 4 medical missions to Antigua, Guatemala, Kenya, and Africa. Her professional interest is to work directly and support children to maintain and enhance their development in a healthy, safe, and nurturing environment. Molly Matsik is an educator, consultant, and researcher working on multiple projects with the Office of Child Development. She has a bachelor's degree in elementary and special education from Edinburgh University and a master's degree in special education from the University of Pittsburgh. She earned her doctoral degree in special education from the University of Pittsburgh in 2017. And throughout her doctoral study, she worked as a researcher, college instructor, and consultant. Molly has a strong background in applied behavioral analysis and precision teaching. Prior to graduate school, she worked as a special education teacher and worked primarily with students with low incidence disabilities in an urban setting. Molly's research interests include academic instructional design, technology, and behavioral interventions. Her other professional interests include pre-service teacher preparation, professional development, and classroom management strategies. I could not possibly think of 2 better people to speak with us today about this new life that many parents are living in now and were not expecting. We're going to ask today that you use the Q&A function to ask any questions that you have, and and we will be addressing them throughout. So as things come up, if you have questions, please put them there, and Molly or Denise or both of them will answer them for you. So I'm going to turn it over now to Molly and Denise. Thank you both so much.
Thank you, Alexandra, and thank you guys so much for being here. I know Denise and I are happy to be spending some time with you this morning, albeit kind of unique for us, but I think the title is kind of fitting because we are all working from home, and also if we are raising kids and kind of getting used to what this global pandemic has done for our current situation and lives moving forward. Even in just preparing for this brief talk with you guys today, Denise and I were kind of collaborating and saying, well, this is what we do in real time, but this is kind of how we're going to roll it out this morning. So I would say we're all kind of green to this. So thank you for your patience and working with us as we go through. Like Alexandra said, please feel free to pop in the chat. And if you have questions, we will address them as we go. We hope that this is kind of informal and yet informative for everyone here. So thank you. I guess that was my welcome for you.
Well, hello, everybody, and thank you for attending. As I feared, the guy that cuts the grass is outside, so you'll probably hear a lawnmower, and my dog will probably bark at some point, so I'm going to apologize in advance. But Molly and I thought, you know, one thing that we've been practicing a lot with our professional work is we're looking a lot at mindfulness. And so, you know, if there's ever a time that we need mindfulness, being in the moment, relaxation, self-care, all of the above, it certainly is now. I don't need to tell you all of that. But we thought we would start with a little breathing exercise, and you're probably very familiar with it. It's called a 4-7-8. And what you do is you breathe in for 4 breaths, you hold it for 7, and then you breathe out for 8. They usually suggest that you breathe in through your nose, and when you breathe out, to kind of like make a whoosh sound. And this has been a very, you know, it's been a practice breathing. We're not really sure who founded it. It's probably through yoga techniques, but it has almost like a very relaxing effect, as well as they suggest you do this at nighttime, especially when you're ready to go to sleep, to just kind of help you calm down, get to that point. From what I've read also, they suggest that you don't do more than 3 or 4 cycles of this, because it can make some people lightheaded, especially in the beginning of trying it. But as you get better with the technique and practice it more, you can include it. So let's just start our talk, especially with just breathing in through your nose for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it for 7. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and whoosh it out for 8. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's a little technique. As I said, it's not, you know, original. Is there any original thought left in the world? But it's certainly one that I hope that you'll practice and teach your children. Some people are teaching their children these methods also, because we all know if there's any time, it is time to breathe.
Absolutely. Thank you, Denise. That's a technique that I always keep in my back pocket, and also have started doing. I have a 5-year-old and have started kind of doing that with her. I like the idea of kind of like putting it in throughout your day, but also, you know, as you're working through your day, it can get really stressful. Like Denise said, the person cutting grass is coming by, the phone's ringing. Maybe your child needs fruit snacks, Alexandra. So things are happening as, you know, you're supposed to be kind of focusing on one thing or another, and yet things are happening all around you. It provides a nice little break in whatever it is you're doing, just to do this breathing method, and then you can kind of reacclimate and focus and kind of center yourself and move forward in a way that's a bit more maybe calm. So something to keep in mind and to practice, you know, whenever the spirit moves you, I guess. We do a lot of breathing exercises. So to kind of follow that through, as we were thinking about this, Denise and I were thinking about sort of what helps us get through the day. And if you're thinking about life kind of before coronavirus and we were shut down, what did your day look like? And it was probably fairly scheduled out, right? And schedules are a natural part of life, and they can also be a great comfort in life. I know as adults, me looking at my calendar, kind of seeing what I have to get through and kind of when and what my day is going to shape out to look like is very helpful and comforting. And, you know, predictable. It provides a level of certainty in a time that is sort of not. And also kind of trying to get your structure, some kind of normalcy back in your life as an adult, and also if your child's life, if you have children as well. We're going to focus a little bit first on a 0 to 3, and then a 3 to 5, and then also a family schedule. If you'll notice, Denise and I are going to be kind of balancing out the conversation between life with kids and then life as an adult, because this is definitely a time of transition, you know, for all of us. And it's important for the adults in the situation to be mindful and be calm in order to help ease that for the children also involved in the home or in the living space that you are currently living and working in. So we kind of, a number of our colleagues at HealthyCHILD, we did some brainstorming and we put together these just kind of rough schedules as ideas. Now, of course, this can be as flexible as you need it, or, you know, certainly we want it to fit the space that you live in. But these are just some things that we almost as a conversation starter for you, maybe to start thinking of or to put something together. So for your littles, for your 0 to 3s, we kind of, you know, wake up, and of course that time can change as well. If you have my child, she's up before 7:30, so maybe that was a bit of a pipe dream. So depending on when your child wakes up, and just having that morning, you know, sippy cup, milk, cuddle time, you know, whatever it is you like to do in the morning to get your day rolling. And then sort of a playtime, get some activity in, some either gross or fine motor skills, stop for breakfast, and then some quiet time, snack. Obviously, you know, with littles, snack happens a lot throughout the day. And then building in time for playtime, maybe outside, weather permitting. It is Pittsburgh, we get it. Weather is rarely permitting anything but gloom. But so yes, weather permitting, putting in something outdoors, fresh air can always be very helpful. And then going back in for another meal, some quiet time or a nap. I don't know, in my house, nap was always 1 to 3. And that was a wonderful time for adults then to kind of get some things done or just chill out yourself, you know, be kind to yourself. Yes. So then playtime again around 5, dinner, bath time, and whatever that looks like for you, whatever that bathroom end of day routine might be. Book, or in my house, we do songs, and then bedtime. So that's kind of just something, like I said, just a rough something we put together that might be helpful for kids in that age range. The 3 to 5 schedule does not look that much different in terms of activities or scheduling. We did kind of add in for our older kids, you know, some cleanup time. So this is a nice time that you can work with your child on putting stuff away after they've completed it, or even at meal times, things like that, walking it to the dishwasher, putting it in the sink, something like that. And then also finding in or carving out some time for schoolwork and academic stuff. This can be tricky, and again, based on where your child is in the academic world. But even if the weather permitting, you can't go outside to maybe go on a nature walk or something like that, you know, there are definitely some educational apps out there. If you're okay with a bit of screen time for your child, that might be a nice time to kind of filter some of that stuff in. So yeah, these are just kind of some of our ideas for that. Denise?
Yeah, I just wanted to say in terms of these two schedules, you know, it's very comforting for children to have sameness, routine. We know, and you know, I know we're preaching to the choir because you're all parents, so you're used to this, but especially if your child is attending some type of preschool or a child care center, they would be very used to having the routine. So it kind of helps them feel some comfort in seeing a schedule at home also, because it reminds them of the sameness. And it just makes them, I think it makes children feel better. In our professional work, we've also felt that the more the children are scheduled and can follow that routine, they can learn skills then such as self-regulation, waiting to take turns, the whole socialization that we need to teach children sometimes. So, it's not, you don't want to feel like I'm regimented because I'm creating a schedule for my child. It actually helps your child, I think, in the long run, because it really gives them that sense of learning how to do things and, being part of the family and knowing what their role is. So in doing that, again, it just gives them some comfort. We want to go to the next slide. There we go.
Can I pause you for just one
Yes,
second?
please.
We have a question.
Oh,
Nancy asked that there was a mention of screen time. Is there a certain type of screen time that is better than others?
Probably technically no. In my estimation, for my daughter, I prefer her to be on, if she's on my computer or doing something like that. In terms of Nancy, for in terms of eyesight and things of that nature, or harm for, is that kind of what you're going with?
Yes.
I would, yes. Mm-hmm. I would say kind of the larger the screen, the better. If they're looking at something very small for a long period of time, that's not very good for their eyes, or for a dim screen. So I would say, everything in balance, and definitely you have to use the tools that you have access to. But for my daughter, I kind of prefer her to be on an iPad or my computer, just because it is a bit bigger and a bit brighter.
Right.
And again,
I think also, the research isn't out in terms of, how much screen time should a child have a day. There is some research, yes, but again, I think since we've been, staying at home these past couple months, I think that our children are probably engaging in more screen time. The danger with it is, though, you want to be, as the parent, you definitely want to be in charge of what they're watching, what they're viewing. We don't want the screen to be the babysitter. And that's easy for me to say because my children are all, adults. But with young children, and, one of the challenges for parents working at home is if you're scheduled to do your work at home and your child is there, then how do you balance that? I mean, this is a big dilemma for many families, as well as if they have certain times when they're to be in the computer. And certainly with preschool children, it may not be as rigid, but with older children, they're usually given a certain time for a Zoom meeting or having an assignment. And if that coincides with your work time, there can be conflicts with that. So these are some of the challenges that we've been hearing from parents. But certainly I think you need to limit your child's screen time when you can, because I don't think it's good for children to be on the screen, 4 or 5, 6 hours a day. It's just kind of common sense. And screen time not only means computers, Chromebooks, that kind of thing, but also television. How much television is your child watching? So we do have a concern about that.
But the good news is, to piggyback off of that, there are plenty of educational things that are out there and available. So if, for example, if your child is having TV time or what have you, Sesame Street is doing a lot of, great programming as usual around the pandemic, and also just kind of around social and social emotional topics as well. And also PBS Kids is a really nice outlet for that younger age group that's still somewhat educational and entertaining.
Right. Good point, Molly. Quality versus quantity.
That's right.
And certainly we rely on Sesame Street Communities a lot. They produce a lot of materials that are really good and are right up there for children, as well as Molly said, the PBS site. So I hope that answered your question.
And there's one more similar question before we go on.
Okay.
Should the type of program they watch on television or interact with on an iPad change how much they are on? Things like ABC Mouse, Sesame Street, or something that is more educational or better, could they potentially do that a little bit longer? Thanks for the question, Jamoke.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And that's something that I've definitely put some thought into, especially with my daughter. I tend to let her go a bit longer with things that she's actually interacting with. So ABC Mouse, or she does like IXL, which is like math games. So I do tend to let that time lapse a little bit longer while she is engaged. If she's not engaged and she's just kind of like clicking out or, clicking around, then I tend to kind of follow her cue and kind of pick up on that. Yeah, she's done. Then we don't need to, we can find something else to do with our hands at that point. Maybe engage in a craft or something like that. So yes, I tend to, if it is something that's educational or something that your child is engaging with, I tend to let that go a little bit longer. If it's just like a show that's kind of just on in the background and they're zoning or doing something different, then I would just kind of turn that off and move towards something a bit more engaging.
Right. Read your child's cues. So, right. We always say this, parents know their children the best. Yes, we are professionals and we come in and out of their lives, but the parents are the constant. So we would rely on your judgment with that. So we're going to go to the next slide, which kind of gives us an example of perhaps a family daily schedule, because we have to consider now that we're part of this home office and your child's homeschool and the recreation center, whatever it is. So if you're kind of driving yourself crazy, maybe try to write it down a little bit for yourself also, but include your child's schedule with it at the same time. So if your child, for example, has a certain time when they're going to do some schoolwork or academics, maybe that would be a time for you to concentrate on your work schedule. That is, if your work is flexible. Because sometimes, we have givens and sometimes we have choices. So if you have the hard givens, you want to definitely maybe, write that down so when you absolutely can't change. So this looks very similar to the schedules that Molly did also, but it includes the parent a little bit more because, even though these are difficult times, they can also be delightful times because we are seeing that we're spending more time with our children and we're also able to do things perhaps we never have time for. And so now, they say, be careful what you wish for because we just got it, right? So, looking at things, if we're trying to build in some creative time to see what you can do with your child, make it fun. When's the last time you were able to sit down with your child and play a game, do a craft, do a puzzle, that kind of thing, painting? A lot of people have been very involved with cooking. Like if you're on the internet, everybody's exchanging, recipes and all of that. And for children, this is a great opportunity for them to be involved with cooking. And then if you look at things like cooking, there's different math skills involved, science. So it can become your teaching, part of that teaching lesson is to have them actively involved with it. If your child is old enough, have them, be involved in trying to prepare lunch and dinner. Chore time is very important. And boy, we know all about that because now we're spending a lot of time sanitizing surfaces. Now, I wouldn't suggest that you get your child involved in that piece of sanitizing, but they certainly can help you wipe things down with soap and water kind of things. In fact, they often want to do that. They want a little, have a little chore. We do that at school, where the teachers always give children different jobs. There's a job chart at school, and children really almost, vie for those positions. They want to be involved with it. So you can do the same thing at home. Build in that quiet time, like Molly was talking about. Build in that academic time. If your child is a little bit older, with your preschool children, it will probably be a little bit more challenging. But you can always talk to your child about, well, what would you be doing at school right now? Because school, again, is very regulated and scheduled. And so there are times when there's group time, there's one-to-one table time, there's free play, so just as we had at school, you could kind of create that at home also. The fresh air, can't, express the importance of that. Get outside, it's good for everybody. Have you noticed how many people are walking outside these days? It's pretty amazing. I think it's, in that respect, it's another positive. It's gotten us to be a little bit more active. And then the final point, because you can read for yourself, the final point after 9 o'clock is called me time. This is extremely important for the adults. You have to do self-care. There's a lot of sayings that relate to this. You can't pour from an empty cup or an empty bucket. If you don't take care of yourself first, you can't take care of others. And then there's the old oxygen on the airplane one, right? When you're instructed to, if you need to have oxygen, put it on yourself first before you put it on your child. It's the same thing that we're dealing with now. You have to build in time for yourself. There's a great commercial on TV where the mother's hiding in the bathroom eating cookies, and the child knocks at the door and says, "Mom," and the mother uses a very low voice and said, "It's Dad." So it's the same kind of thing where you need to have your own time, and don't feel guilty about it. It's important for you to recharge. All right.
We have a few questions here.
Okay.
So we'll start with we'll start with the first. Shara, she asks, what if you have children with special needs, speech therapy, OT, PT, or an IEP? It's incredibly hard to put in full-time hours and full-time teaching.
Yes.
Yeah.
Molly, do you want to answer that one?
Well, I think we can tag team it. And yes, I can. It is, and I can only imagine. And I hope that you're navigating those waters well.
Well, I'm hoping that you're also getting some support, because
right.
I know that there are home visitors coming in to do things like physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy. So I am hoping that you have that, but this is the inequity of what's happening right now, not only with children who have, children of different abilities that have different needs, but also children who don't have the resources like an iPad or a Chromebook or something. So unfortunately, we are seeing the inequity. I would suggest that I'm hoping you have an employer who's flexible with you and supportive, but also recognizing what you can do and what you can't do, and try to do the best that you can.
And also rely on, what you do know about your child. We always recommend, we know that you're the expert on your child, and we always recommend you following their lead. So if, I would say take the pressure off of yourself minimally for the academic stuff and the school stuff. Work with your child on things that you feel they really need to be working on in order to be successful moving forward. Speaking of child and moving forward. Working from home. Yeah, go ahead. Yep, right down. Denise. Help.
But right, like Molly's saying, you are the expert with your child. And so you need to kind of look at your own resources. This is a time we can't reach out for our supports like extended family to help support us, but perhaps even virtually getting in touch with your child's teacher if they are enrolled in school, to get that kind of support that way also. So I hope that answered your question a bit.
Okay, we have two more coming. So Melissa says, it seems like there's only 6 hours of work being done for an adult and I am expected to work my full day. How do you juggle this, especially when I have a small child that can't do academic time on their own? Oh, Melissa, I feel you.
Yeah. So Molly, the question is, we're expected to work 6 hours, or at Pitt, we're expected to work 7.5. But if you do have, the younger child, how can you as the parent juggle both of those schedules, especially if there's only one adult in the house also.
Right.
If you have two adults, sometimes then you can kind of trade off and prioritize your work.
Right.
Then you trade off to the other adult, but that doesn't always happen. So I don't know, Molly, you have any words of wisdom since you have that young child in the house?
Yeah, you tag team, you have to, if there's not another adult in the house. That's where I think, relying on some kind of scheduled activity that you can put into play. And to be honest, you can do what you can do.
Right. And I think you have to say things like, this is mom's time to do her work, and this is your time to do your work.
Right.
You work on your letters or whatever it is that you could give your child, and you kind of work side by side. Last resort, right? Put the screen on, have them watch, that educational thing, especially if you're in a Zoom meeting and you're at a deadline where you have to get your work done. But all the studies of resiliency always show, why do people, with especially compassion fatigue, why do people burn out and have compassion fatigue and other people in the same situation don't? It's usually the resiliency goes back to an understanding supervisor or having that support, in a work situation of that. And so, being honest with your supervisor, it's not an excuse because you don't want to pull the COVID-19 card. However, it's the reality. There are many people struggling with that exact question. All right, I think we should go on and then we'll take some more questions. But what we want to focus on next is how do you answer your child's question? We at Healthy Child have been working on this since, I want to say, March 16th, because I think our last day that we were physically at work was March 13th. And we started right away, how are we going to do our work virtually, be able to support parents, families, staff, and continue on. And one way that we did it is we really beefed up our Facebook page and started generating a lot of posts that we could put on it. And Molly's going to talk about that a little bit later. But for now, I just wanted to give you an example of what we did. This is a page from a social emotional story that we wrote. And it's kind of like a question and answer story for what we found are children's questions. And we tried to answer them from a professional and a personal standpoint. So we've had a lot of children asking us, what is a virus? What's the coronavirus? What's COVID-19? And we just try to talk and answer it in language that the child knows. Many parents may be worried about these kind of questions, and how do you answer them? And, being fearful to talk to their child. I come from a heavy hospital background, and we always felt in the hospital, especially with diagnosis, that you always answer as honestly as you can in language that the child will understand. You give the child enough information, you don't give them too much information. You find out from the child, really, what do they want to learn, or what do they really want to know? So you don't go into this whole big explanation about the coronavirus came from China and blah, blah, blah. No, you just kind of, when a child asks you the question, you reflect back on them. Well, what do you mean by that? Or can you tell me a little bit more about, what you're asking? Because they might just be asking you something very simple that you don't need that, big technical answer for. So we just said, a lot of adults are talking about a virus. A virus is a tiny germ. It's, tinier than anything you can see. And this germ is making people sick. Now, again, relating back to preschool, teachers always talk about germs. So children often can understand what it is. So again, we relate it back to something that they understand. This is, spreading around the world. It's called a coronavirus. The virus it causes is called COVID-19. And then this is a picture of what the virus looks like. But again, you tell the child, this is a really big picture. It does not look like this. The coronavirus is way smaller than this picture. But again, it's just a very simple explanation. Hopefully, it will help the child understand it. If they said to me, what's the coronavirus? The first question I might ask back to them is, what do you think the coronavirus is? Right. And just kind of hear what the child thinks so that they can, kind of understand that. All right, I think we're ready to click. So this is one of the other, besides, writing the social emotional story. And believe me, this is not, a public announcement for Healthy Child and the work we do. We are part of the Pitt community. This is information to support parents, teachers, children, anybody, adults. So what we developed last week was something that we're calling Healthy Child Chats. And again, this is a separate question and answer for children based on our social emotional story. So as you can see, this chat question is what I just went over. But what we're going to do is 3 times a week, we're going to post questions that children have asked us and hopefully answer them in child-friendly language. So again, this is just an example of something we're doing.
And these can also be used too as like a conversation starter, or if your child is kind of, kids are picking up on things that maybe they're not vocalizing or verbalizing, but might be engaging in behavior that is a little bit different from what you've seen. And that can also be a result of them reading different things in their environment. Maybe you or your partner or other folks in your living space might be acting a bit differently than you normally do. And kids pick up on that. So it might kind of be a nice way too, reading some of these to get some ideas as conversation starters with the little folks that you're, in your living space with.
Right. And don't assume because your child isn't asking you that they're not maybe worrying about it.
Correct.
Think about preschool development. Children will make up the answers if you don't give them to them. Now, of course, like as I said, you want to find out what they know, but you also, in finding out what they know, that's your opportunity to clarify any misconceptions they may have. Or remember, again, this age group blames themselves for things because of the magical type of thinking. So they may think in the back of their head, I wished something, negative, and now it happened. But as Molly just said, they're very sensitive to the parent's stress. So you have to keep your anxiety in check also, because if not, it has the potential to kind of affect your child.
Sure. And in addition to that, with kind of where we are at Stay in Place, we've taken away all those social constructs that your child is used to functioning within. So they're used to having other people, even their size or their same of like-minded, abilities to them. bouncing ideas off of, playing, doing imagination with, things of that nature. And right now they're not engaging in those types of things. So just things to keep in mind, because we all know that our workforce hasn't stopped. So, you know, like Denise just said, it's important just to keep that in mind and keep yourself kind of in balance. So as Denise mentioned, on our Facebook page, we kind of were thinking too, we don't just want to like put all this information out there and then not offer anything to go along with it. So like Denise mentioned, we've bulked up our Facebook page and we kind of have thought through a daily schedule of offerings. So we have Activity Avenue, which is a craft, something that you can engage with your child in. And it gives you all the steps and the idea, and obviously you can make modifications based on, you know, wants, needs, desires, that sort of thing. But these are just ideas. We have Compassion Corner, which is something for you as the adult in the situation to kind of read over, take in, and really kind of consider your own self-care as you're working through this transition. And the mindful message is also kind of in collaboration with that. Just a way for you to maybe engage in some meditation or some breathing, something like that, some kind of calming activity. And then we also, Monday through Friday, we have a daily social story that one of us reads and posts on Facebook. And that's, it could be some maybe part of your screen time that you do allow your child to do, to sit and watch a story. And then with each social emotional story, we've also accompanied a lesson plan. So, and with the lesson plan, it just gives like a brief synopsis of what the story was about, maybe some talking points that if you do want to bring up something about the story with your child. So 3 kind of like questions, and then also 3 activities that kind of align with the story that you can engage your child with. And if you want to, you know, continue that work.
So this is an activity that was developed to kind of, again, it's for adults. You know, you could certainly do this with your child, but this certainly, I think, puts things in perspective for you. Because what it is you trace your hand, and in the inside of your hand, you write things that are in your control. And on the outside of your hand, you kind of label that things that are out of my control. And the whole purpose of doing an activity like this is to just kind of get you in touch with, you know, the givens, which you could possibly, the givens that you might have some control over, you might not, but also, you know, just kind of gives you a better idea. You know, certainly this is in the same realm as doing things like journaling, you know, writing down your thoughts so they get outside of your head and on the paper. So again, that you can reflect on it. You know, this exercise was certainly developed way before COVID-19 came into our life. But I think this is some of, you know, what in terms of what's happening to us is we are feeling so out of control because there are so many unknown answers for us as adults. But if we focus on it, you know, we can get into things like some people are labeling, you know, COVID-19 fatigue instead of, you know, compassion fatigue, because, you know, we have to be very careful again with how we are dealing with this situation, because it will ultimately or may ultimately reflect or, you know, get passed on to our kids. I've been reading a lot of things also that they're paralleling our responses, you know, to being in isolation, being at home, that kind of thing, to paralleling to grief responses. So we are doing, you know, we are exhibiting a lot of behaviors right now that perhaps are similar to what people go through when they are actively grieving. So again, it's just a great way to think about it. If you're interested in that grief piece, works by Alan Wolfelt, W-O-L-F-E-L-T. He's done a lot of work. He's a grief counselor. He's a guru almost. But, you know, he's written a lot about this. So, you know, try this little exercise at some time when you're feeling the need to get back into, you know, control. So I don't know, Alexandra, do we have any more questions from people?
We have one still in the queue, and then if there's anything else that's come up from our participants, please feel free to put it in there now. Referring to the family schedule, Jennifer said that she tried to make a schedule and included the kids in the creation of it, but she was the one that had the hardest time sticking to it because her job doesn't allow for such a rigid schedule. She feels that her kids would thrive with this type of schedule, but it was just really hard to make her work. Any suggestions if you can't have such a rigid schedule? And for reference, she mentioned she has a 5-year-old in kindergarten and a 7-year-old in first grade, and neither are able to be independent with learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Molly. Do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, so yes, I think all schedules should be with a great degree of variance. So I think schedules should be built with flexibility built in. If it's hard with your current working situation to have, or, you know, if you need to put that first in order or put something in play that the kids can, whether it be maybe check out our activity avenues in the morning and set up a craft, and then you can do some of your work while the kids are close by and you can still kind of help. Those ages are tricky because they are so still very dependent on you. The other thing pains me to say as a working adult, but after bedtime, that's when I found that I'm able to kind of put some work in as well, because it is a time where it's more quiet in my house, or early morning. I tend to wake up before the rest of my house, and I can put some time in then, and then I can really just be present with my daughter when she is kind of living and working through the day.
Right. I think it, you know, as you said, it depends on the type of work that you need to do, as well as, again, what the expectations are from your job. So those things certainly will play into it. But also, you know, maybe if you do, and I love that you develop the schedule with your children, because if you want to get children to cooperate, have them be, you know, stakeholders. But also maybe making it a weekly schedule. So in other words, like if you find out what your work is or that workload is for that week, that schedule may look different than that schedule that you developed the week before. Just as life is, right? Things change. So just trying to talk to your children about that also, because again, I relate things back to school. You know, I'm in a school setting every day, and the teacher will say, oh, today the Carnegie Museum's coming in. So children are used to things changing, even though they have a schedule. Mm-hmm. So you could use that language with your child, you know, just like at school when things change, or you have to go on a field trip or something, that we have to change it today, you know. And you can apologize. We're all apologizing to our children. But it's a good learning experience for them also to know that things can't always be this way, you know.
Right.
Okay.
We had some questions prepared also, and these are part of things that are going to go on Healthy Chat. Was there something else?
Yeah, we have 2 more. I'm sorry.
Okay,
at least for now. Oh, you know what? We actually have 3. So let's keep going as much as we can. So Lauren says, I have a question about when life returns to quote unquote normal and our kids go back to daycare or school. I worry about separation anxiety on both sides, kind of like feeling like returning to work after maternity leave. Any suggestions on managing that transition back?
Right. That's an excellent question that we are dealing with right now. The Healthy Child team talks about this every day about the transition, because this will be a very difficult, I think, and different transition for every child and for every adult. Because it's just, you know, children, think about again, with grief, children are mourning. They didn't get the opportunity to say goodbye to their friends, say goodbye to their teacher, having graduation, you know, all of the little milestones that we celebrate with children to get them to the next point. So we're actively talking about how are we going to transition all of these children. And I think it'll be most difficult for children who are changing, like who are going to from, you know, preschool to kindergarten, you know, that big kind of jump transition. I think it'll be, especially if they're going to a different school, a new school. So just like thinking about transitions.
And I think it's a nice thing too, to keep those lines of communication open with your child. Again, just like how Denise talked about, like talking about the coronavirus, you can do that with school, or you can do that with transitioning back in, like, hey, what do you think this is going to look like? This is what I think it's going to look like. Let's go on Google Earth and Google your new school and check out maybe what a classroom might look like, or things of that nature. With Healthy Child, we always, we tend to break things down into social stories. And that's kind of a way that I've sort of been talking to my daughter about, because she's going to be heading into first grade, and how is that going to be different? What kind of things do first graders do? Things of that nature. So we've just been keeping that communication open, and it's just a rolling conversation. And that seems to kind of help. And any kind of visual, maybe you can couple with that conversation, might be helpful as well.
Great, thank you. So Melissa asks or mentions that my daughter has been having breakdowns and not able to communicate why. Eventually she will say that she misses her friends. Are there resources to give them language and verbalize how they are feeling, or any similar resources for parents?
Let's
Yeah,
see.
I'm looking at my resources in front of me. But we, you know, again, we've been having a lot of conversations with that. I'm glad that the child was able to put it into words. Young children especially don't have the language, and that's usually why they act out. That's why toddlers bite. That's why preschoolers hit, because it's easier to do a physical movement than it is sometimes to think about it and talk. So what we suggest for younger children especially is to use the expressive arts. If they can't talk about something, see if they're able to draw a picture about it and then talk about it. So what we've been suggesting in terms of the friends aspect is if the other children have some kind of capability of doing FaceTime or doing a little play date Zoom meeting, of course that relates back to the resource. But trying to do that, writing letters to each other. We have an activity that's a virtual hug, where a child traces their hands and then they make their body into a T, and we put a yarn from arm to arm, and then the adult, they decorate their paper hands, and the adult punches a hole in it, and then they can send that to their friend. It's a virtual hug, and then their friend can also send them back that virtual hug. But just trying to think of creative ways for children to stay connected. This is why we've changed our language also, that don't do social distance, it's physical distance, because we want children as well as adults to remain socially connected.
Right. And again, Melissa, that's a really nice, it's very cool that your child was able to label how they were feeling. And I would say stay on that train. Like, hey, you look like you might be feeling this way. How does that feel to you? Or this is how I look when I feel sad or worried. A lot of times even just what I would say, like tacting or labeling those behaviors can be helpful, and then increase your child's willingness to then the next time, instead of having a meltdown or even mid meltdown or pre meltdown, mom, I'm worried, or mom, I'm missing my friends. And so, just to kind of like start to build that fluency with labeling those feelings, I think is on the right track. So good job, Melissa.
Yeah.
So Mike Haas from the School of Education mentioned that his kids' teachers have been having meetups with their class to help keep them connected, which I think definitely helps for the older kids. And for my 3-year-old, we sent videos to his teachers saying, "We miss you and we hope you're doing well." And so that helped him feel connected.
Good
So
idea.
one other question here, and I think we're going to just say that this will be, we have one more coming in. So we'll do this. These are our last two. So if you have any questions after this, we will definitely connect you with the contact information for Molly and Denise.
Right, and this is actually, when we're talking, you could actually write down things.
Yeah. So Tracy asks, do you have any advice about how to keep children pre-K and 9 better understand that mommy and daddy has to get work done? It's been difficult in the moment with the kids when your brain is so focused on work. I totally understand this question.
Yeah, I mean, you just witnessed mine 10 minutes ago, where, she wanted to show something, and that whole thing was we couldn't get my background to work previously, so she was pumped up about that. So yes, it's the struggle is certainly real. I do a lot of, and especially for your pre-K and, for your 9, the motivation might just change a little bit, but we do a lot of when then statements. So like when mommy and daddy do X amount of time at work, then we're going to do something fun or whatever it is you choose to do. That can be, especially if it's something that's highly motivated for your child to get to participate in. I've also, especially with your pre-K, set a timer as well. And that kind of keeps me on track, as well as lets her know the definitive end of work time and the beginning of Violet's choice time, or whatever it is that she's looking to do. So those are maybe two ideas.
I think the timer is an excellent idea because, as you said, Molly, it keeps you on track also.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes we have to reset the timer like we do. The children are very knowledgeable about that, especially preschool children in a center. We are always tracking time. And so, but having that physical, so, set the timer on your phone or whatever way you want to do it. Because children sometimes don't understand 10 minutes. They don't understand that. But if you put it on your phone and show them the countdown, they have a better understanding.
Okay, and our last question for today from Nicole, also a Pitt School of Ed grad and a teacher. And she is sending good wishes and good vibes to everyone. She has a 13 and 10-year-old, and she's the only parent home during the day. One thing that has helped was to create a checklist for each week where they can plug in their assignments and check things off when they're done, including their chores. They're having a lot of feelings and misbehaving and being disrespectful. Any suggestions on that piece?
So when the first thing that comes to mind, especially if this is not, I'm assuming, Nicole, how your kids typically act, a way to kind of filter through that would be thinking about a change of reinforcement, right? So their environment has changed dramatically, especially in terms of being social. And children, especially in that age range, your friends are everything, and being outside of your home is very important, and being, in contact with friends is very important. So I would kind of, just from a parental standpoint, don't be offended by it. It's so hard to say that, but just kind of acknowledge that they might be coming from a bit of a different place in terms of their reinforcement and their regular rate of that reinforcement. So love them through it would be my advice. I know, and that's really hard, maybe, but
it's good advice. COVID-19 goes directly against typical adolescent development. So it's very challenging, for parents of adolescents anyways. And
Yeah.
then to have all of this social isolation, which is so critical for that age group. So just try to keep them connected again with FaceTime, that kind of thing. Can we say just one closing statement, Alexandra? Because I know it's time, right?
Yep, if you would like to wrap up and then I will close us out, that sounds great. Thank you.
Well, this is a question that we've had from a lot of children and adults, and that is, when is the big germ going to go away? So this is a hard thing to answer, but what we've been saying is we're not sure, but it is my job as, the parent, the caregiver, whatever, to make sure that you're safe. So children need to always know that we're doing what we can to keep them safe. There's no need for you to worry because many adults are working very hard to help children and other adults keep safe. So that's about what we can do.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for being present with us and for your patience. We appreciate that.
And please go to the Healthy Child Facebook page because we have a lot of resources, as well as if you see the last thing there for Incredible Years, they have a lot of resources for parents and teachers. And happy Teacher Appreciation Week.
Yay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Molly and Denise. That was wonderful. We will have a brief survey that will pop up as we close out the meeting. It's 4 questions, just asks how your experience was today and if there's anything else that the Alumni Association can offer for you. It will also go out in an automated email tomorrow. I will put these links and Molly and Denise's contact information in that email so that you have it as well. And once we have the recording all ready to go, it unfortunately takes a day or 2, we will also get that out to everyone. Thank you so much again, Molly and Denise, for being here. Thank you to the School of Education for helping us put this together, Mike Haas for connecting me to the Healthy Child team. And we have 2 more webinars this week if you are interested. Tomorrow is building a job search toolkit at 1 p.m. and Thursday is the cost of financial precarity at 2 p.m. All of those are listed on our website and on Pittwire Live. So thank you all for being here. We hope you have a great day and we hope that things go well in this new normal. Thank you.
Thank you.